Hello everyone! I got some time on my hands today, so I wanted to start creating a new page for my not safe for work web-manga DiffuseRelations. And since I got some nice positive feedback on my last video, I thought, why not make content out of it? Kind of like a making of sort of series. So here it is. Welcome to the first episode of Making of AI Web Manga. Yay! And you have probably noticed that I'm speaking a little bit different than before. And this is because I really had a cringe attack after watching my last video again and noticed that my stuttering got really bad after a while. So this time I will intentionally force myself to speak slower and more clearly. I am very hectic, and this is good training for myself. So win-win, I guess. I will also map out some of the things I want to talk about beforehand, so you don't have to sit through minutes of me mumbling while nothing of value gets said, like the last time. So anyway, let's get started. As you can see, I loaded up my favorite version of GIMP instead of Forge UI for the first part of this series. And this is because before we can hop into crafting the images, I first need to storyboard what I need and plan out the panels. As an example of how the final result will look like, I loaded up the file for the last page of chapter 1. This is what we are aiming for. The story of chapter 1 ends with Kana, our protagonist girl, realizing that her father wasn't actually intruding into their house, so that he was there because her mother agreed to it. So this is the premise of the next page. So let's get into the new GIMP file for chapter 2. Actually, is it pronounced GIMP or GIMP? I'm sorry. Let's get back. So I had to make a new file instead of just adding new folders inside my old file, simply because I want to upgrade the resolution on the second chapter. So here we go. This is it. And as you can see, I already mapped out a few things. I re-imported the logo from the first chapter and also added narration text. And since new chapters are always the perfect moment to have a progression of time, I used this opportunity to skip ahead to story days. Which brings me to my first talking point. Time or scene switches should have transitioning panels. Most mangas do this thing in which they show some scenery to establish a setting. But scenery is easily the weakest part of AI images, so let's try to avoid having too much scenery for no good reason. Especially not if it doesn't actually move the plot forward. But luckily, we have another ace up our sleeves. Because chapter 1 ends with Kana having a bad mood, I reflected this in the overall page coloring. As you can see, it's mostly dark colors and brown and gray tones. But now we have had this time skip, and we use the new page to establish the new status quo with narration that emphasizes that her fears actually haven't come true and that there are some positives to the new situation. So we can use the top panel to create a color transition from black towards a much brighter tone, to immediately give the reader the impression that yes, her mood has changed over time, and things did get better for her. And having a mostly empty panel with just a color gradient and maybe some decoration patterns really supports this visual presentation of the time skip. So there's nothing to create for the first panel. Hooray! Which makes the second and third panel even more important, because we need to establish multiple things here. First, we want to create something fun to look at while the narration is basically dumping some exposition for the next 2 pages. Second, we want to show and not just tell Kanna's feelings. She is still frustrated and scared about the situation, and we want visuals to support that. But we also want to show the conflict of her emotions while also giving a bit more background on her feelings towards her mother. She doesn't want her father moving in, but at the same time she doesn't want her mother to be sad. And the third point, we want to set the scene for the next page, which, and I loop back to the entertaining part, will be a shower scene, because who doesn't like a good shower scene? But don't worry, we will use the shower scene to also establish a new story beat. So it's not entirely just for entertainment, it actually has a purpose. So how do we achieve all that? I thought about it for a little bit before starting the recording and mapped out and planned narration bits across these various panels. So the first panel is done. This is just a color gradient. We talked about this. But the center panel of this page has narration bits that explains that her mom is happy with Kanna's father moving back in. So we want to support that with visuals. And to emphasize that, we want to display the mother's happiness and nothing else. So we won't show the father's feelings about this. And to achieve that, we want a scene that has his head outside of the frame. So I was thinking about an image with a sideways perspective of Kanna's mother leaning against his shoulder, eyes closed, potentially with a smile. And left and right side of the panel will have lots of narration, so a simple background will be enough here. For the bottom right panel, we want to show Kanna's feelings because the narration focuses back onto her and we are already done establishing the status quo. So I thought about her leaning with her back towards the bathroom door. This is something you often see in anime. A character wants to be alone and enters a secluded room. He then leans against the door to truly emphasize the feeling of being alone in that room. After all, when you're leaning against the door, naturally nobody can come in. And this can be further emphasized with a downwards facial expression and the character puffing a breath of air, etc. You know the tricks. She doesn't like what is happening, but she is having a moment of relaxation by secluding herself in the bathroom. And look how elegantly we can also set the scenery for the shower scene with that. For the bottom left panel, we have some narration pieces of her questioning her own judgment. So what would be better than using a close-up of her face with a thoughtful stare into the distance? So we do that. And if possible, we can also establish the next page a bit further by hinting that she is going to take off her clothes. And, for example, we can have her hands on one of the shirt's buttons. We don't want her to actually undress on this page because first, we want to use that on the second page. And second, this is a YouTube video and YouTube videos don't like nudity. So, yeah. We have this family-friendly video here, folks. Nothing to see here. Move along. Okay. I'm just kidding. But we want to set the scene for her doing it on the next page, so it's actually good to at least hint that she's going to do it. So those are our goals. We want an image of Keiko, the mother, expressing happiness. We want an image of Kana leaning against a door with scenery bits that tell the viewer that this is a bathroom. And we want a close-up image of Kana's face with a background that represents the bathroom scenery, potentially while also showing that she is going to unbutton her shirt. So that's our plan for the next couple of creations. But since this has already been a bit over 10 minutes, I am going to put the part where we actually start creating images into the next episode. So I hope you liked it so far. It was a bit boring, perhaps, because I basically did nothing but talking. But, well, proper planning prevents piss-poor performance. Bye!